This show is sponsored by the official Recall Committee California Patriot Coalition. Recall Governor Newsom 2020, number 1424018. Committee major funding from others include Rescue California, Recall Gavin Newsom, Prop 39 LLC, DGB Ranch. This is your five-star spot for a smorgasbord of information from RecallGavin2020.com. In a tasty, non-caloric, gluten-free bite. It's Friday night at the French Laundry with Executive Chef Orrin Heatley and Maitre d' Mike Netter.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friday Nights at the French Laundry, our virtual restaurant. The cuisine's about California politics, and the main entree is always the recall of Governor Gavin Newsom. Let me tell you, it's great to be back in studio tonight. As you know, we had guest hosts who did a fabulous job last week, as I and myself, Orrin, and the team's been traveling up and down the state, promoting, which is looking more and more like an assured thing, Gavin Newsom out of office. But don't get too cocky, everybody out there. It's important that we stay on it to get this yes vote and do everything we can in about the 4.5 weeks that we have left. I'm honored to be accompanied tonight. Orrin is taking the night off, and tonight we have Susan Hurd and Robin McCree with me here. For those of you that don't know, these are two of the main drivers behind the recall. Before I even introduce them on the air, I want you to know something. Where Orrin and I go out and kind of take the pot shots, etc., do a lot of the stage talking. Without these two fine people, Susan and Robin, this recall would not have gotten done. They're the ones that keep track of the count, keep track of statistics, do so much that really help provide the infrastructure for the recall. And tonight is a very special show and one near and dear to my heart. You've got to understand that the state is devastated by wildfires. And tonight's theme is on the wildfires. And I want to tell you something. We call this show Friday Nights at the French Laundry. This comes from that infamous dinner that Gavin had for an old friend of his. And for those of you not familiar, his old friend, who's not on our show tonight, is Jason Kenney. Jason Kenney is a lobbyist who happens also to be a lobbyist for PG&E. And for everybody out there, if you're saying, I don't know if Gavin should get removed or not, if you're not paying attention to Fire, Money, and Power, the ABC article that came out by Brandon this week, actually the TV segment, showing how Gavin Newsom is so unequivocally linked to one of his biggest donors, which is Pacific Gas and Electric, and he has basically messed over, I'm going to use the polite word on the air, the people that have been victim of fires that happen every year in the state. You certainly will be voting yes to get Gavin out after this. But before I even go into that, I want to start by introducing Robin. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing, Mike? Great as usual, I'm sure.
Well, Robin, I'm always, because I'm kind of a little bit mentally defective, as everybody knows. Robin, it's great to hear your voice. Start off by telling everybody in this first segment a little bit about some of the things you've done for the recall. You've been the keeper of the count, the finances, etc., and give us a little bit of your background for those that haven't read it on the website.
I worked at the University, Chico State, for several years, and I retired from the College of Agriculture in December of 19. And I found myself thinking, I don't understand retirement. I can't do nothing. And I heard about the recall. There was no one in Butte County. And so I couldn't get any help, couldn't get any assistance. And I thought, I'm going to just jump in, print petitions, and start getting signatures. And after several months, I met Orrin, and the rest of history. I ended up joining you and Orrin, and we formed our team with Susan and Dan, and the rest is history as far as this recall. But my involvement was working with Susan and helping with statewide rounding up of volunteers in the initial months before the petition was even launched. And also, I was brought on to help monitor our donations and finances. what else did we do? There were so many things.
You're not going to cover it all in this segment, Robin, but I'll
No.
tell you what. Let me roll a little bit to the person who was our statewide coordinator for volunteers, Susan Hurd. I'm really honored to be on the air with both of you tonight. Susan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. Oh, wait a minute.
Whoops, yes. For those who don't know, hear that little echo in the background. No, you're not going crazy. Well, maybe you are because Gavin's still your governor. Remember that you can tune in and watch us do the show live on Zoom and on Facebook to actually see a radio show. So that's the sound that you hear when Susan's echoing there. There's a lot involved. And again, I want to give a shout out to Tim Holiday before I go back to Susan, who coordinates the visual part of the radio show. Kind of an oxymoron, but hey, what about Gavin Newsom isn't? Susan, tell us a little bit about you, if you will, for the listeners and viewers that don't know.
Well, I spent my life working as a legal assistant for law firms and raising my two boys. So I didn't really have much time to get involved in politics until Newsom came along and started destroying our state. And I thought, this is not going to happen. So I set up a Recall Gavin group in Nevada County, and I was starting to get a bunch of private messages from people saying, there's already a group. I go, what? And that's where I found Recall Gavin 2020 in Nevada County. So I joined that, and they asked me to be an admin for Nevada County. It wasn't much time after that. I ended up becoming the state administrator of all the Facebook groups and recruiting regional managers and authorized personnel. Robin and I spent a lot of hours, many, many hours recruiting people. Lots of work I've devoted to this and can't wait until September 14th comes along. Get rid of Newsom.
Absolutely. And for everybody out there who doesn't understand the breadth and width, we'll get into statistics later in the show. This has really been a statewide movement, and it has to remain a statewide movement across party lines. And Susan and Robin have really been not even behind the scenes glue, maybe just on this public glue. They put calls every Tuesday night, still coordinating the distribution of merchandise. Just too much to even discuss without just making a radio show on operations. But again, our focus tonight is going to be on the fires that have been raging throughout the state. Now, I've got a question for our audience tonight, and I want you to call in and stay on hold. Have the fires touched you? And I'm going to give my personal story later in the show, but have the fires touched you or somebody that you know? And the reason I think that's important to note is because for many of us, natural disasters or things that happen appear to be something on TV, just like Elizabeth Warren, who's in a different state in Massachusetts, right? California is really an illusion. She doesn't live it every day. For many of you out there that have been threatened by fires, had friends and family affected by fires, when we get into not only the atrocities of what the fires do, but the corruption, yes, I'm going to use that word, corruption, that Gavin Newsom has put forth, is doing with collaborating with Pacific Gas and Electric and the lobbyists and attorneys, I don't even have words to really say as to why he should even remain in office, recall or not. It is absolutely one of the most appalling things for anybody out there like myself that has been around and experienced the personal disaster of what fires out there. Call in. Tell us your stories throughout the show. By the way, when you talk about pollution, when you talk about other things, we're going to get into that later. Robin has some great stats piled up about the fires that have affected California. That phone number is 1-800-222-5222. Call with how fire has touched you in California or someone that you know. 1-800-222-5222. I can't stress that of all the things the state faces, and every year Gavin looks a little surprised by it. It's like, seriously, we have these every year, and there's so much could be done. Robin, I'm going to go to you real quick. You live in the Chico area, right?
I do.
And how close are the fires, active fires, to you right now?
Right now, it's not that close, but the campfire was within 20 minutes, and that was devastating 3 years ago now. However, the Dixie Fire is touching the area where I grew up, the Lake Almanor area where I went water skiing, Seneca, the old mining ghost town from the 1850s was burned to the ground. That brought tears. I used to go there with my parents. They collected business cards from every visitor throughout the country that came there, and everything was lost. And that was really heartbreaking. So many areas. Westwood, where my parents, my father's father, my grandparents owned the Westwood Inn. Westwood tonight at 1 o'clock today, they had an emergency warning to evacuate. So these hit very close to home. They're very personal. And I know so many families and friends that lost their homes in the campfire as well.
Susan, what part of the state you live in again?
I live in Northern California. I'm in Nevada County, and the closest fire we had was the river fire. And I mean, we couldn't even go outside. You couldn't breathe the air. You couldn't see the trees through it. And I'm trying to remember how many structures.
We're going to have those stats that Robin's assuming later on. I want to tell everybody out there, again, before we roll to break and have our guest Holly Foster on, who Robin's going to introduce after this, fire in the state touches everybody. And the fact our corrupt governor would collaborate with the company that was convicted of felonies to help get them out of bankruptcy and not help the victims of fire is absolutely appalling and disgusting. Let me tell you something. We have to get Gavin out, and we have a lot of fire touches everybody, disaster touch everybody. Gavin cannot manage it. He collaborates to keep it going. We're going to roll to break and have Holly Foster on next. Are you ready? It's Friday nights at the French Laundry. It's KABC. Recall Gavin2020.com. Tonight, The Voice of People will not go up in flames.
Just a prime example of a really big hypocrisy. You don't understand, we're not like other creatures. Rules do not apply to us, we are the leaders. Voters can't be trusted to be indoor eaters. They are more contagious after all, they're mouth breathers.
Good evening, everybody. This is Tim Holiday, your video host, and it's kind of funny. Leave it to the blind guy to host the video. Anyways, as they were saying, yeah, I've had a number of friends that lost their homes in the Paradise Fire, which is very unfortunate. And these are friends that I went to grade school and high school with. And it's just devastating what's been going on. And Gavin came into office right around that time. And and he still has not done a whole lot to help out with fire prevention. And this is just terrible.
It's terrible. I knew friends that literally ran for their lives from during the campfire, literally.
Yeah.
And cars, their cars, the sides were burned as they tried to get through the traffic to get out from their home and down into Chico.
I can't hear you, Robin.
I'm unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, Susan.
I don't know why I can't hear you.
You need to turn it up. Turn it up. But anyways, as we were saying, Robin, yeah. So the size of the vehicles and people were running. My friend,
I can't hear you either, Tim. What's going on?
One of my friends had lost their pet, and her pet dog is still missing. And
Speakers off.
It was devastating and
So
totally
we're just talking about how the wildfires affected ones that we've known personally, and the damages that happened in the was it the car fire?
The car fire was one that was in car fire was 2018.
Yeah.
Yes.
My husband worked these fires.
Oh, we're back on. I need you two to go on mute and turn the volume down on your devices, please.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our virtual restaurant. We're literally talking tonight about the state being on fire, not facetiously, even about cooking food. I want to go straight to the one guest we have tonight. Tonight's going to be a very deep dialogue about what affects every person in the state, whether you know it or not. Robin, introduce our next guest, Holly Foster. I know she knows a lot about the flames and cattle ranching and things which affect Northern California. I want you to do the introduction here.
Yes, we are so fortunate to have Holly Foster on tonight. She's joining us from Cheyenne, Wyoming, where she's attending a cattle sale. Holly has an abundance of knowledge. She's known nationally. She's currently serving as president of Butte County Cattlemen. Holly's a fourth-generation cattle rancher with generations 5 and 6 rowing in the wings to carry on their family cattle business. And in addition to Holly's hands-on experience, her family's ranch was burnt in the catastrophic Camp Fire, and they are currently once again being impacted by the Dixie Fire. So Holly, welcome. We can't thank you enough for sharing your personal experiences, your insight, and your knowledge with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate that.
Holly, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about what your family went through, what your business went through, and just the experience and what you know about what maybe could have been done to prevent this or what the state could have done afterwards to help you out.
Well, I think we are having mega wildfires every year throughout California, throughout Oregon. I know a lot of ranchers in those areas, Nevada. It's not only catastrophic for our industry and folks who depend on natural resources to make their livelihood, but you have to think about the wildlife, the impact to our air quality. Robin mentioned that I'm currently in Wyoming for a cattle auction, which I reluctantly left home to attend, but kind of had to. But the smoke is prevalent here. So, you know, the state of Colorado is dealing with their own fires as well. So something has changed over the years. Our family and the area that we reside in Northern California, my great-grandfather homesteaded there in the 1880s. You know, wildfires are part of life and a risk that we deal with. But these mega fires and changes in policy over the last 40 to 50 years, you saw a lot of changes to the Endangered Species Act that impacted the ability to responsibly harvest timber. We've seen a lot of lawsuits from environmental groups directed towards the Forest Service. So it crippled their ability to renew grazing permits in our national forests. Because they had to follow certain procedures and do NEPA, what's called a NEPA analysis before permits could be reinstituted or renewed. And so as a result, we've removed a lot of these tools from managing public lands as well as private lands. You know, definitely we're seeing a change in demographics and population in our state and throughout the West that impacts. We have a lot more people interacting in areas of natural resources, a lot of development in areas where historically folks weren't there. So in and of itself, that removes some of the grazing and tools that have been there in the past. But there's also been a lot of things that work in the political environment that have changed how we manage these lands. You know, it's not to say we're, as ranchers, we're the first environmentalists. So it's important that we manage our natural resources responsibly, or we can't make a living. Timber operations are the same way. So we've all learned a lot of things over the years, but to remove those practices entirely has created a whole new dynamic that's threatened communities, people that, you know, are innocent bystanders, for lack of a better word, and have lost everything in a lot of these fires.
Holly, help me. I just learned something like I do from a lot of our guests, but what you're telling me is that you're not allowed to even have cattle graze naturally on the natural grass because of these environmental permits. Did I gather that correctly? In a lot of areas.
So much of our land in the West is owned by the federal government, and to a lesser degree, state governments own the vast majority of the West. And so as a result, private enterprises, private ranches like ours, historically have utilized those federal lands, state lands, as grazing lands, or timber operations do the same thing. They would lease federal or state lands and harvest timber. But because of historically in the 70s and 80s, a lot of changes to the Endangered Species Act and policy changes that occurred, the ability to responsibly utilize those resources has been taken away from private enterprise, and all that's left is a public domain and public management that is not for the greater good, that does not allow for mixed resource management, a combination of private and public enterprise. Now it's strictly left to the government, and sometimes that's not the best way to manage things.
I got to ask a dumb question, having not much experience with cattle except on a plate at a restaurant.
Sure, yeah. Well, we appreciate that too.
I'm sure you do, and that's actually what I'm leading up to, because when you can't grass feed your heads of cattle, do you have to feed them grain? I mean, they still got to eat. What do you feed them if they can't naturally graze on this grass?
So what happens in our family is typical of most family operations, and essentially all 98% of cattle operations are family owned, and that's a documented statistic with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so what happens is we're what's called a cow-calf operation. So we raise the calves until they're weaned, so they're separated from their mothers, just like kids are weaned from breastfeeding and bottle and milk. So kind of the same sort of philosophy. And then they are typically sold after that to the next person in the production chain. So that may be someone that will graze them on grass, or they'll actually take them to a feedlot where they would be fed grain and finished for that nice steak that you have in a nice restaurant. So that's a process that takes basically about 15, 16, 18 months over the course of a young animal's life. So, but the cows stay in our herd until they're 12, 14 years of age. And then we go ahead and let those old gals go and find them a new career. But they've definitely done their duty, and our cows it's an interesting dynamic, because people that raise livestock, we love our livestock, and we are incredibly devoted to their care. So for example, during the Stixie Fire, we're in the midst of an evacuation order on our family operation, but we don't leave because we have livestock there. So we stay to do everything in our power to make sure those livestock are safe, and do what needs to be done. So it's a dynamic, because we understand that kind of fragile relationship between the food supply and stewardship and animal husbandry. So that's where that extends to our natural resources. We have to manage that responsibly, or we don't make a living. Responsible logging operations operate the same way. So that's a symbiotic relationship. And unfortunately, a lot of that's been lost because of folks, and sometimes with good intentions, but practices, when they just get removed 100%, we have these drastic effects. And we're looking at, like I said, these super mega fires that are so impactful to so many people beyond just those immediate communities.
Right. And it seems to me, and again, help with my ignorance there, but by breaking that symbiotic relationship of your herds grazing on grass, and I'm told grass-fed beef is better for me than corn, so I'm assuming they're right there. There's less grass, so we're kind of these rules are not only giving more forest for us to burn, which cause more pollution, but in a way, it almost sounds like there's less grass-fed beef available because there's less grass that they can graze on. And it's kind of like, it seems like the cycle's breaking that symbolic relationship. Is that a fair assessment or not?
Well, there's not, if you want to, consumers have a lot of choices when it comes to beef consumption. So there's definitely grass-fed opportunities, and for consumers that like that product. And I have some friends and neighbors that focus on that marketplace. Grain-fed beef is certainly an important part of our whole beef industry, because we're utilizing grain that's not grown for human consumption. It's an extremely efficient way to produce a protein that's super nutrient rich.
Right.
So there's a pretty efficient production system, but that all starts on rangeland. So it doesn't really matter, throughout Nebraska, the Southeast, those cattle start out on a grass, rangeland, forest operation. So that's where those spaces are super critical to not only these cattle ranches and where they begin and where a calf's life begins, but they're also super critical for carbon sequestration, a lot of the things that our environmental friends subscribe to and that all of us can benefit from. But if we turn right around and don't allow grazing on that vast percentage of public land that private entities don't own and don't get to manage, then what have we done to all those positive efforts when we have a 500,000 acre fire that's now become the largest wildfire in California history since 1932? What does that do to air quality and carbon sequestration and all those dynamics? So that's where we just need to realize, and so many more people are being touched personally by wildfires. It's not just the land managers and the resource folks like us that depend on it for a living. It's small rural communities. My family spends part of the year in Plymouth County and part of the year in Butte County. And so my brother's kids attend Plymouth County schools and went to the Greenville school, and that town is gone.
Hey, Holly, would you mind staying on for part of the next segment just for a few minutes?
Sure.
I love that, because I've got to go to hard break here. There's a couple more things I want to ask you. I'm honored to have you on the show here, and I've got a few more questions again. I think we're about ready here to roll the brakes, stand back. We're talking fire tonight. Holly, you might want to, if you haven't heard this before, pull the phone away from your ear for a little bit, because I'm about to say it. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC 790. You can hear this all the way from the international border up to Oregon and all over the United States. Recall Gavin2020.com. Contribute. Keep us on the air.
To be indoor eaters, they are more contagious after all. They're mouth breathers. Just tell them it's important to follow all the law. How any violation might kill a grandma.
AM 790.
ABC News.
Oh yeah, Mike is great. So for those that are tuning in onto the Zoom chat as well as onto the Facebook page, this is being posted to. I did post where you can donate for the Dixie Fire. Robin, let me do a little favor for you. There, did you see that? You're still on mute, Robin.
Sorry.
There you are.
I'm going to do Holly for half another segment, then we'll phase out and Robin take one caller, and then Robin will bring in your stats toward the end of the hour.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to ask Holly about how this affects the cost of beef when people lose a herd in a fire and the trickle down?
Mike, did you hear that?
Yeah.
No, he's back out again. Yeah, Mike is definitely a character, that's for sure. And I gotta put Mike back on mute. Okay, because he'll forget. And yeah, Mike is definitely great. So yeah, what happens if, actually you can bring up that question, Robin.
I
so
will.
One of the questions that's pending here to bring back into the radio station is what happens if they eat grass? Is there a penalty?
Well, they're just not allowed to move their herds up into the federal and state land anymore like they used to.
Yeah.
And cattle used to graze, and that would keep down some of that dry grass that was fuel for fires.
Yeah.
Now that they're not allowed to graze as much as they once did, that further ignites these fires when they take off.
Yeah.
So
Why is
it's
that, Robin? Why is that they can't graze on federal and state land?
Because a lot of environmentalists think they're trampling nature, and there's multiple reasons why they just get they're burdened with permits and jumping through so many hoops. Typical government and people that make laws from behind a desk that have never been to a cattle ranch, or probably even in many times a forest or grazing land. So they're making decisions based on information that in many cases is not factual, and they don't have an understanding. So it's really frustrating and sad. And the fact that the grass isn't kept down by cattle grazing, the dead timber isn't cut out by the loggers, it's just more and more fuel that's left, so that when a fire happens, it's much more devastating and catastrophic. Really sad.
And I want to quickly answer a question for Diana. Yes, it was on Cap Radio where that was uncovered about the mismanagement of the forests. Yeah, the numbers were given incorrect by Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to bring that back up on the radio station, Robin, that'd be great.
Which part?
The part about the cattle not being able to graze on federal lands.
I think Holly touched on it, but
it might need to be a little bit more touched up on. And let's see, any other questions? Donate to recallgavin2020.com if you can. I actually wearing this shirt on purpose, and Oren's not even here. It says more cowbell. But Oren's not here with his dinner bell. Darn. And we're still on commercial break. Let me check the Facebook here to see if there's anything more.
About 5 people to our groups, and then Facebook cuts me off. Just love the censorship.
Oh, interesting. Oh, we're back on. If you two can turn down the volume on your Zoom devices and go on mute, please.
With Executive Chef Oren Heatley and Maitre d' Mike Netter.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our virtual restaurant about California politics, where the main entree is the recall of Governor Gavin Newsom. Of course, if this was a real restaurant, you might be sitting down to a real steak. And so in honor of the supply or food chain, I might say, tonight, we're honored to have Holly Foster on, who owns a cattle ranch, has suffered through devastating fires, is an expert on the subject. And Holly, I wanted to kind of shift from our last discussion about the grass fading and the causes of it to what you're facing today. And what was the cause of the last fire that actually burned your ranch?
So our family went through the campfire. Obviously, I think that's been clarified that was an equipment issue with PG&E.
Mm-hmm.
But that day was extraordinary in a lot of ways. The wind was really like nothing any of us have ever really experienced. Our family's dealt with a lot of wildfires over the years that have been caused by a variety of reasons. So whether it was somebody irresponsibly dragging a chain on pavement or a whole host of situations, but the day that the campfire went through, those were extraordinary circumstances. So obviously super devastating to so many people, burn up our entire ranch basically in Butte County. And so many people lost their homes, businesses, livelihoods in Paradise and throughout the area. So that one's a little different because than what we're experiencing right now with the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire is probably more indicative of the issues with forest management, resource management on our public lands. That fire's been going for a month, so that's a different scenario entirely. And burning through forests. Obviously, we're in a drought situation. We're at record dry fuels. So those circumstances, we can't control Mother Nature, but we can sure do some things to manage those forests in the wintertime, in the times of year when fire isn't such a risk, to help minimize fuel loads, do things to responsibly harvest timber, graze lands where appropriate. There can be a lot of management things that could happen that we wouldn't have seen the town of Greenville burn down after 3 weeks of fire. So,
Holly, I want to share something with you that you may not know about me because we've never met, but I actually lost my home in 2007 in the San Diego wildfires, which are from Sempra. And that too was started by a utility company. And the reason I'm kind of dwelling on that for a second, there's things that are active nature that are hard to control. But after these disasters happen, I was curious what your experience for your family was with the Camp Fire. How did it go with PG&E getting compensation, or did you ever? Because that's kind of a little bit of what we're talking about tonight. So I'm kind of curious how that experience went for you and your business.
Yeah, we're probably going to take a little different approach. We did not participate in the lawsuit, if that's your question. I feel like when we live in rural areas and we want electricity, there's some things that are incumbent upon us. But I think part of the issue is not so much the corporation itself, but some of the policy that is in play that they have to adhere to that makes their ability to manage some of their services almost impossible, similar to what our timber operations deal with, similar to what our ag operations deal with, that the level of bureaucracy that oversees our private industry to such a point that they can't do their jobs competitively and can't manage resources competitively ties everyone's hands.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's kind of what I was. Look, I don't think people at the utility companies inherently are evil, and I'm not even implying that. I think part of the issue is here, what we're discussing is how from the boardroom point of view, an environmental point of view, and a governor point of view, it just doesn't seem, to the point you're making earlier, and again, correct me if you think I'm wrong, that we have the utility companies, the executive branch of California government, and the environmental concern groups kind of working together to come up with workable solutions that
I think
don't keep this from happening, or at least prevent it from happening as much as possible, and then a system afterwards for this kind of disaster. That's why I was asking up there. In San Diego, there was no post system for disaster, really.
Sure, and that would be, I think, in Edison territory, but
Sempra, but you were close.
Yes, okay. And I think there is a lot of unintended consequences, or maybe not so unintended, or misinformed, ill-informed consequences from folks dictating policy who have no reliance on these resources, don't live in these communities, don't deal with the day-to-day. If we had a lot of utility linemen helping to make decisions, we might see a different result. If we had a lot of loggers sitting in those boardrooms helping to make decisions, we might see some different results. If we had ranchers sitting in those rooms and offices, we might see some different results, because those people actually derive their livelihood from these resources and live in these communities and are impacted by these fires.
Boy, Robin, I got to hand it to you. Holly's a lot more polite than I am in saying this.
She is, and she speaks nationally, and she knows how to make progress. And you have to be diplomatic, right, Holly?
Sometimes, yes.
What is he calling
sometimes,
the governor? I'm not that diplomatic. I'll be honest with you, Holly.
Basically, I think what Holly really hits the nail on the head when so many people are making laws and regulations without hands-on experience or living the life or knowing the landscape, right? They're behind a desk in a suit and they're not understanding what really happens and the trickle-down domino effect.
Interesting point, well taken, Holly. And the kind of the thing we're talking about tonight with PG&E in the governor's office, where the head of PG&E walks in the governor's office to make the bankruptcy deal. You know, it's fascinating. All I saw were guys in shirt and ties. I didn't see one lineman walking into the governor's office. And to me, that's part of the challenge is we just don't have, nobody's listening to the common person about the common problems.
Right. Yes.
Listen, Holly, thank you very much for being on. Is there anything you want to add, or is there a way people can find more of your musings, your teaching? Where do we hear you next? After the fire's over, should we show up at your house for a good steak? How does people get a hold of you, Holly?
There you go. Yeah, we're happy. We've got a whole host of folks in our trade organizations, whether it be California Cattlemen's or my local Cattlemen's Association, that, you know, just get to know your local farmers and ranchers, get to know some of those local logging companies and folks that make a living doing these things before you go to the ballot box. And it might help change your mind about where to place those votes and what makes sense for these families that are making a living off of natural resources.
Holly, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time from Wyoming to come on our show tonight. Remember, Holly, vote yes. Vote yes to save California, because we have to break this cycle.
I thought you were going to say beef, it's what's for dinner.
I like that.
Well, now you made me hungry, Holly. Thank you. Remember, we're a virtual restaurant. All right, we've got to roll on to the next one here. Holly, God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing. Everybody out there, the next segment is going to be Robin and Susan talking about stats. We're going to take some more calls later at 1-800-222-5222. Tonight, we're focusing on fire, the food chain, the supply chain, and the devastation or the corruption chain that Gavin Newsom has given us. And that's why we are the voice of the people on Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC 790. Recall Gavin2020.com. Break out your computer. Send us a little money. Keep the voice of the people on the air.
So we saw you at a party.
It wasn't me.
Eating at the French Laundry.
It wasn't me.
You even had the clam chowder.
It wasn't me.
So we got you on camera.
And wow, another good segment. Let's see. Robin's back.
How did that come across, Tim?
That came across pretty good.
Good. Okay.
Susan, where'd you go? Anyways, right now it's just me and you, Robin. Susan's still, there she is.
She's there. I'm working on the groups.
Nice. Yeah, I shared up and down all of California. Susan and myself have been busy at work behind the scenes and taking care of that. And I think we got it covered.
Good job.
And now I want to cover some other groups shortly after. We are on like 5 or 6 different Facebook live groups posted live across the nation. And awesome. I'll be sharing across a lot more.
I wish we could talk about our candidates, but I know
we can't. I know, I wish to. But some of our previous hosts from last week and the week before on the commercial intermissions are at an event in Salinas right now, supporting some of the candidates in a gubernatorial debate. Not naming names.
The debates. I wish all the candidates would debate.
Yes, I would love to hear and see that.
I mean, that would give us everyone a real good feel as to who to vote for in September.
Yeah, as well as how they'd be able to handle large groups, as far as reporters, just probing them.
True.
For those that are interested, I'll post on our public page the video that Dr. Dave Daly did. I worked with him for 16 years in the College of Ag. He's the,
Oh, we're back on.
oh, never mind.
With Ed Chappell and Heatley and Maynard D. Mike Netter.
Well, welcome back, political fans, to our virtual restaurant all about California politics with the entree, I wish it was beef, Sam, focused on the recall of Gavin Newsom. Look, before we jump to Susan and Robin here, we're going to do a segment on some of the largest fires in history here. And remember, get the chance, call in. I want to go to Magdalena in San Francisco, the recall groupie. How's it going there in SF tonight, Magdalena?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
What?
Can you hear me
Yes,
okay?
I'm just kidding you. Yes, we can hear you fine.
Well, first of all, I put my vote in, voted well. I feel really bad about the fires. I can't really speak on the fires right now, but I can say I really feel bad about, and my heart goes out to people who are going through that. San Francisco is getting worse and worse. Next week, you can't go to a restaurant or a bar unless you can show proof of vaccination. I can't go back. I can't even go to school face to face next semester because I have to have proof of vaccination. So it's getting worse and worse in San Francisco. But I'm sure we get a new governor, that will change here too. But,
absolutely. And Magdalena, I want to jump in here real quick because as always, we only have a few minutes here with you.
I know, I understand. So,
but wait, this is really important. So although and I find this interesting, you make me think as you do from time to time. You know what's fascinating is that the city of San Francisco itself is never under the immediacy of fire, like much of California that we're talking about tonight. But excuse me for saying this, the gutless wonders in the ivory tower at PG&E collaborating with our gutless wonder of a governor to keep their stock price up and the money flowing to Gavin reside in downtown San Francisco. Maybe we should force them to move their headquarters out to an open field. I wonder what they would think of fire safety then, because they're right in downtown in the big tower, if I remember correctly, which I do, probably not too far from you.
Actually, I used to work for PG&E years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I retired in 1993.
Wow.
I used to work for PG&E a long time ago. There's a term for PG&E: pigs, greed, extortion.
You know, we could do a whole show on their history of everything from the gas explosion, from what was that show, Robin, Susan, Aaron Brockovich movie?
Oh, right.
Right. We did on the PG&E underground. The corruption of PG&E goes back 50 years, et cetera, where they just simply continue to get away with things by buying our politicians. Magdalena, bless you for all you do. Thank you for announcing your vote of yes. And you know what I'm going to ask you to do, right? Keep spreading that word through the San Francisco and Bay Area to get those yes votes in to get this governor out of office.
You got it, Mike.
Wait. Where can we find recordings of our show in case they aren't listening to them live stream?
Okay, Magdalena Recall Radio.
How much of a cue do I have to give you? I do this every time. God bless you, Magdalena. Thank you very much. All right.
Love you all. Take care. Bye.
Love you. Next, I want to jump to Robin and Susan a little bit here in the minutes we have left in this segment. Robin, you told me before the show you've assimilated some very interesting statistics about the fire that burned my home was one of the largest fires in San Diego in 2007. And unfortunately, that record's been eclipsed. Maybe you and Susan could talk a little bit about some of the research you guys did before the show about the breadth and depth and magnitude of the fires that are going on in California that our governor isn't doing much but making sure the stock price stays up for his biggest contributor.
Right. I went to the CAL FIRE website today and I decided I wanted to put together some statistics from 2017 to 2021 year to date. And it was mind-blowing the amount of acres and incidents that we've had just in 5 years. Certainly the worst years were 2017, 2018, 2020. But the total acres burned from 2017 to as of today are 8,620,786 acres. And that involved, they refer to the fires as incidents, 41,044 fires. Out of those fires, there have been so far 183 fatalities and 47,200 structures lost, homes and businesses. Now, that doesn't even take into consideration the livestock, the livelihood, the wildlife. It's heartbreaking. The homes, but that's an average of 1,724,150 acres that burn every year, the last 5 years, and 8,200 fires, and an average of 37 deaths and 9,445 structures. You would think we could do better, but the fact that this governor closed 8 fire camps this year, he released the prisoner crews that were helpful in fighting the fires with CAL FIRE. And in addition, my neighbor's CAL FIRE, and he shared with me that because of the COVID lockdowns, there's so many contributive factors that have made this even more devastating. But in addition to releasing the prisoners, because of COVID, CAL FIRE was not able to do the training camps they typically have, the academies, to train qualified fighters to go out and help. And so they're also shorthanded. So you've got the corruption at so many levels. And the one thing I do want to share, I know families that have, I know people that work for PG&E. And I think it's really important we remember, like Holly was sharing, the lineman and the everyday employee with PG&E, they are good people. The people in corporate are the ones that are doing this. So it's just a reminder not to take that out on the everyday employee. It's corporate.
Absolutely. And Susan, I want you to comment on something too. I want you to go way back in time with me. Robin, thank you for the statistics. It's mind-boggling. But I think what's even as mind-boggling is go back in with me, Susan, you know about this, to February 2019, where Newsom had 35 priority projects that were supposed to clear 90,000 acres. Now understand, Robin's quoted a lot of acreage there. Clearing 90,000 acres stops fires from burning. Newsom actually lied about that. They only cleared, he exaggerated that figure by 686%. That, by the way, was way before COVID. Susan, remember that story?
I do remember that story.
How does that make you feel, even before we started this, knowing our governor of California out and out lied to us when he went in office saying this is going to be one of his priorities?
Mike, this isn't the first thing Newsom has lied about. All he is a bunch of lies. He's cut the CAL FIRE, he's cut the firemen's pay. He said he wasn't going to take a pay raise, yet he did. He cut funding for the wildfires. The inmates, my husband was CAL FIRE captain, and he ran a crew of inmates on these fires, which a lot of them were injured on. And he released prisoners way before their time, and then he closed the camp. The inmates, it built up their self-esteem. It gave them something to do, and it's something they could follow once they were released. But they were paid just a few dollars a day to combat these fires. So what does he do? Closes the fire camps, releases prisoners, and instead recruits a lot more firemen at more millions and millions of dollars to put out these fires. It's not working.
No, it's not. And I find it so incredible. And I'm going to ask everybody again, if you want to phone in and tell us, do you think the governor should be indicted for this? For out and out lying for the public, for out and out collaborating? We're going to get into that after, as usual, the time flies by here. But this is one of the biggest things facing the state today. The fires cause pollution, loss of life, homes, you've heard earlier, breakdown in the supply chain, our food chain. Yet our rich elitist governor doesn't seem to really give a damn as long as the donations keep flowing for Pacific Gas and Electric. And remember what our show's entitled? Friday Nights at the French Laundry. After the break, we're going to get into that even more. Who was at that dinner and why that was just more than a faux pas by his governor going without a mask. A lot is determined, as my mom told me many a time, by the company that you keep. And Gavin isn't keeping good company. And I've got to tell you out there, it's time for the people of California to start keeping company with a new governor. We're going to get even more into this after 8 o'clock break. Call in at 1-800-222-522 and tell us, do you think this governor has legal culpability? 1-800-222-5222. I want to get your opinion if you think this alone would be just enough reason to recall him. Everybody out there, hold back, stand back. It's Friday Nights at the French Laundry, KABC 790, all the way, all over.
Our only agenda is giving.
I like doing that every time Mike says that. Got to be a little animated, just like Mike.
We should also bring up the fire, power, and money.
Oh yes, that what was that ABC?
Oh wait,
did that.
We need to talk about how many people have not even had their first payment from the lawsuit that was filed. I know Holly didn't take part in it, but over and above the insurance payments, there were so many people in the Paradise Fire that why in the world you would not have homeowners insurance. But some people inherited homes that had been paid off for 1-2 generations, right?
Yeah.
So why they didn't think they still needed homeowners insurance is beyond me. And that's personal error.
Actually, Mike knows quite a bit about insurance. So bring that up to him and he'll talk about that.
He's going to talk about that. But it's amazing how many people have not been paid out of the lawsuit. Yet some people have received 3 payments.
Whoa.
Yeah. I met a girl at the nursery last weekend, Deja Vu Nursery up in Paradise. And it was pretty interesting listening to her share her story. And she lost her home, her brother lost his home, and her parents lost their home.
But her nursery was still standing?
Minden's nursery was destroyed over 50%, and the owner was at the point where he was ready to retire. So a gal that owned Deja Vu Nursery, it was a long process and not getting his settlement, so he sold out or leased to Deja Vu Nursery, but over 50% of all their plants were destroyed. Wow. And the main office building, whatever, so they are rebuilding with a new owner.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at we got to bring up fire, power, and money, and also look at the town of Greenville. It's gone.
Yeah.
At least the whole downtown. Dave and I were just up there camping in Sissonville in July. I can't imagine being at a campground when one of these huge fires starts.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that either. That'd just be...
I would freak out.
I just can't imagine how much wildlife has been lost.
Yeah.
I had invited Dave Daly to be on the call tonight. He was at the College of Agriculture, rancher, 5th, 6th generation. He lost over 350 head of cattle, and his documentary is, you can't help but cry, where, you know, like Holly said, those cows, they keep 15, 20 years before the old girls, they turn out. But there's a picture of him walking through the burnt out fires with the cowbells that have been in his family for 5, 6 generations. And that's all that was left are the cowbells. And it was a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching documentary.
Goodness.
A lot of loss.
Sad.
But
I hate to be a downer, but the reality is when bureaucrats make laws, they don't necessarily what's right.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be this way.
Right.
Nope.
All I can say is that Newsom has blood on his hands. Lots.
All right, we're back on. So, ladies, if I happy, turn it down so Mike can turn the heat up in the kitchen.
I'm hungry, Mike. Cook us up something good.
LLC, DGB Ranch. This is your 5-star spot for a smorgasbord of information from RecallGavin2020.com. In a tasty, non-caloric, gluten-free bite. It's Friday night at the French Laundry with Executive Chef Owen Heatley and Maitre d' Mike Netter.
Well, welcome back to the second hour or second helping of Friday Nights at the French Laundry, our virtual restaurant where the cuisine's always about California politics, and the main entree is a recall of Governor Gavin Newsom. If you missed the first hour, you missed a great interview with Holly Foster as a cattle rancher. You missed the fact that tonight I'm on the air. I'm blessed to be with Robin McRae and Susan Hurd, two of the main drivers behind the recall. But the good news for you is you still have 55 minutes or so to catch up on all this. Listen, if you're out there, I urge you right now to do 3 different things. Thing number 1, Google the article that was written and the TV segment about PG&E ABC 10. It's called Fire Power Money. The in-depth article that Brandon Rittman wrote about this would boggle your mind. It's actually based on the French Laundry. The fact that the lobbyist that Gavin Newsom was dining with that night was also the lobbyist for PG&E, Jason Kenney, a longtime friend of Gavin's, a longtime friend of PG&E's, Gavin's biggest donor. PG&E's been convicted of felonies, yet Gavin. And in the TV segment, they show him walking in, negotiating with Gavin. They talk about safety certificates being signed off, how the people of the Paradise Fire and some of these other fires are getting the short end of the stick because the way it was done, how even the law firms, and this is important to note, the law firms that Gavin Newsom hired, where the state has over 1,000 attorneys that did some of this work for Gavin for free, happened to get $3 and $4 million in payments for the state for work. Here's the reality. Gavin is corrupt in the way that he's done this. This is all over the papers. It's not reported enough. He is rigging the system with the PUC so the people get the short end of the stick. And although he can't fire any members of the PUC, he could certainly pressure them, which is what he's done to do his dirty work. They should not be communicating with Gavin. This is so close to legal, you can't believe it. Please, thing number 1 I ask of you is Google and look at that article, Firepower Money, spread it to everybody that you can. It's time that this got called out more. And believe me, ABC is the mainstream press. Gee, LA Times, I haven't seen an article from you about it. Why don't you get out there and do your job and start reporting the bad things that Gavin done instead of just blasting the recall? So that's thing number 1 I'd like you to do. Thing number 2, of course, is keep us on the air by contributing to recallgavin2020.com. Thing number 3 is, because remember, we need your money to keep this voice going. And as the email we put out today, we really want to run TV. We want to run more radio. We've got, thanks to a generous donation from Annie, we've got some radio ads being run this starting the next couple weeks. But remember, Gavin has about $40 million from rich donors like PG&E as the state burns. So how about helping us get this on the air? I also want to say something else before I get to my third request, which is about calling in. I found it really strange, Robin and Susan, that in the interview that Gavin did earlier this week, did you see that? And I told you that made me believe in climate change, right? Because we saw Gavin sweat I'm like, it must be really hot in his office, right? But what I found very fascinating, Brent from LA, we'll get to you 1 second. I know you're waiting outside the restaurant. Is he talked about going to meet with Biden. Remember that?
Yes.
I thought he would be going to talk about maybe the state of California, since we have some of the largest fires going on. I thought maybe he would be talking about some Fed relief. But Susan, you know what he came back with?
What? What did he come back with?
You ready?
Yeah.
He came back with the fact that, in fact, of all the things going on in the state, the fact that people's homes are threatened, the fact that flames are leaping through the hills, he came back with the fact that Joe Biden is going to defend him in the recall.
Oh, good. Good luck on that one.
Thanks a lot. Well, I think, as I understand, the code name for that meeting was the senile and the slimy.
Did you see? I believe it was the Washington State. The state of Washington donated $1 million to his campaign.
Well, the corrupt have to stand together.
Right?
I mean, isn't that fascinating? Who does? Look, I want to go again. 1-800, my third request is 1-800-222-5222. Do you think Gavin should go to jail, quite bluntly, in addition to being recalled for the corruption that he's performed with things like PG&E, if you're reading up on it? Brent, you're on the air with Mike, Robin, and Susan tonight. I'm commonly known as Nutter. How you doing, brother?
That's great. And I would start off with yes, yes, yes. So hello, Mike, Susan, and Robin.
Hi.
Yeah, but I wanted to bless you for exposing Gangster Gavin's planet-destroying policies that I think are criminally responsible for California's mega forest fires, our obscene bird slaughter from their useless windmills and solar plants, and the plant poisoning from toxic electric car batteries, and all the environmental devastation which Democrat policies by design inflict upon the planet. I think it's just like their homeless policies are designed to create homelessness, and their criminal policies are designed to create crime, and their economic policies are just designed to destroy the economy.
Yeah, it seems strange, that in spite of all this, we hear, look, nobody is for a bad environment, Brent. I mean, nobody says, I really love LA because all the homelessness and crap on the streets. I mean, but the reality is, I don't see how Newsom doesn't have accountability for all this horrible air we breathe during these fires. And again, I was down in the midst of them, and we don't forget last year was Southern California that was flaming right above my house in LA, in Azusa.
Oh.
And, you'd think he would have some accountability for that.
Well, of course he should, but the Democrats should have accountability for all their mass murder in every other direction. And so what we're dealing with, of course, normal people want a good environment. And so the average Democrat wants a beautiful environment, just like the average Republican. But when you're dealing with these elitists, we're not dealing with the Democrat Party of old. We're dealing with a socialist, communist orientation, and it's about just control and power. And it's a Cloward-Piven policy. The more destruction, the more we need the government to save us. And we keep raising taxes to save the environment and the traffic and the gas and everything. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so it's not an accident. It's not that they're ignorant. It's that they're wicked.
Brent, you really triggered something in me. Susan and Robin, Brent, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate that. I'm going to tell you what you triggered in a second. Susan and Robin, did you hear about what Nancy Pelosi said about the recall this week?
No, I know she's backing it. I mean, she's backing Newsom.
Right. In a typical, and by the way, Nancy Pelosi's from California. Kamala Harris allegedly is from California. Biden, well, he forgot. But let's put that down for a second, okay? The reality is Nancy Pelosi, and you can look this up, called the recall a nuisance. I mean,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, she called it.
Yeah, didn't she say something about it being detrimental to the children?
Detrimental to what?
Detrimental to the children.
It's detrimental to the children because it interferes with their agenda. Look, as we roll down to, and this show just flies by, again, we're rolling towards another little break in the action here. I haven't heard a damn thing out of Biden, Harris, Elizabeth Warren. Wait, even Newsom himself, as a matter of fact, in his rambling interview, where he really was posed to tough questions about California policies. All I hear, well, it's a threat to our party. It's a threat to us raising a lot of money. It's a nuisance. I'm a little confused. And by the way, you saw the appearance of Kamala Harris at the fires last week, right? No, that's my
No,
point.
I don't have TV, sadly.
No,
I
well,
don't
you
have
didn't miss
TV,
it because
so
she
I
wasn't there. And as a matter of fact, with Northern California on fire near where you two live right now, you know where Newsom is this weekend, right?
He's supposedly in San Francisco today.
No, today he was. Then he's going down to Southern California to
Right.
campaign against his recall. So reality is, Gavin,
his agenda.
yeah, how about putting your agenda aside and doing something for once for the people of California? That's what the recall's all about. Gavin, I got news for you. We don't care about your damn lobbyists. We don't care about the deals that you make. We care about our homes, our people on the streets that are homeless, the crime, and our houses burning, and the corruption that you brought. Nancy Pelosi, this isn't a nuisance. Let me tell you, Gavin, what's a nuisance to you. The 2.1 million people that signed the petition and the 8 million people that are going to vote to remove your posterior from office, feeling what I really mean by that. Everybody out there, stay tuned. We got more to come. Stand back from your radio. Call 1-800-222-5222. Tell us if you think Gavin should go to jail at 1-800-222-5222. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC, all the way to the international border, streaming across the UA, blasting up to Washington, where they gave Gavin $1 million. Recall Gavin2020.com.
So we got you on camera.
It wasn't me.
You said we can't be super spreading.
It wasn't me.
So I missed my brother's wedding.
It wasn't me.
All right, so some chat that's going on across the line on the Facebook as well as on the Zoom is talking about voting. So this week on our town hall meeting, we had our guest Mark Moisier, who was able to explain that very well. And if you would all like to look that up on our YouTube channel, Recall Gavin 2020, that's the last video that was uploaded onto there. Do that soon because tonight's show will be uploaded next. I will also post the link into the Zoom chat as well as onto the Facebook page where this is originally posted.
So has ABC done all 3 segments yet? Wasn't he doing a series of 3?
Yes, and I do believe all 3 are out.
Okay, I think I've only seen the first 2 on YouTube.
I only saw the first 2. I forgot about it last night.
I wasn't able to log on to that.
And we're going to get a brief moment of noise while I get this link. Sorry about that, folks. All right, sorry about that, folks.
Can you see, Tim, the people that are waiting to call in?
No, I cannot. That's Mike is able to see that only.
Okay.
Whomever's at the studio is able to see that. Okay, so I just put the link to hear Mark Moisier talk about the elections and how to vote. And another thing, check your voter status. So go to the Secretary of State's website and look for your voter status. Make sure you're registered to vote. And if you're not registered, register as soon as you get the chance. Don't wait.
And I'm not sure, is every county different in the number of days that they have in-person voting available and the locations?
Yeah, I believe so. But we gotta turn it down right now so it can be turned back up in the kitchen. Welcome to the next segment of Friday Night at the French Laundry.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our virtual restaurant Friday nights at the French Laundry, where tonight are talking about the corruption of Gavin and PG&E. I want to go next to a caller. Greg, you seem pretty confident from Santa Ana that the Dems will make sure no one goes to the slammer?
Oh, yeah. Well, take a look at how they own the judicial branch of state government. After Becerra was appointed to Biden's administration, who did Gavin Newsom assign to the state attorney general?
True.
So you know that they own the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. And most people don't stop to think about this.
No, that's a good, you bring up a good point. That's why I said, and we've had Eric early on our show as a co-host quite often, that we need a strong attorney general. We need an opposing force, because you're kind of right. You would think somebody would at least open investigations, don't you, into the EDD, into the no bid contracts, into this article that, this is literally an expose of Gavin dealing with PG&E, of a whistleblower who's the former commissioner of the PUC, saying I was forced to sign a safety certificate of compliance, pressured by Gavin's office, with witnesses saying, nothing was happening at the PUC about PG&E, a lot of P's there, but you get my drift, without it going through, direct undue influence from the governor's office, direct hooked up to a lobbyist. Isn't it amazing, Greg?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I've been following this quite a bit, and it just boils down to this for me. The Democratic Party has taken small incremental steps to take over the state. And they are a crazy, smart pack of foxes who know exactly what they have in mind and the direction that they want to take this state, and they are going to destroy it for their personal gain.
Well, do you think, Greg, we can stand up and get this recall done and strike a blow back at them?
I'd really like to think so, but I believe that most of the population, they don't get it. They don't understand it.
Well, Greg, you're going to help us spread the word for the next 4 weeks? We just need enough to vote yes.
You have no idea how much I do that.
God bless you, man. I tell you what, if we can't send Gavin to the slammer, let's send him into retirement. One of the two, either way, he's got to go. Thank you so much for calling, my friend. Susan. Well, let's go to Robin. Robin.
I'm here.
Okay, just checking.
Yes.
I got to ask both of you a question here. When I hear about the fires in Northern California, and I want to get a little bit into my story here, you're saying they're within 20, 30 minutes of you, right? That you've had them? Mm-hmm. Is that about right?
Right. That's right.
And that may not seem like a lot because you think of like a half-hour drive. But got to understand that some of these fires are moving with the winds, I believe, at about 40 miles an hour.
Right.
They are.
Right. And so
my neighbor ran across the road and I evacuated twice, because had the winds changed during the campfire and come down the canyon, it could have gotten into the neighborhood where I live and it would have been all over. Hundreds of homes burned. So it was out of control up there. But just like you're saying, once the winds change, 20-minute driving time is nothing. That fire, had it changed direction and come through the canyon, would have been even more devastating.
Where I live, we have a 2-lane road. And when we had a fire in Lake Wildwood a couple of years ago, it was really scary. When they had the 49er fire up here, it was a bottleneck. People couldn't get out. This river fire, it's fully contained now, but that was extremely scary. My son is a lot closer to that. He's probably 10 miles away. And like Robin said, that's not much.
No, it's
especially
not.
when he's on a dead end road in a very rural area.
I'd like to take a little bit of this segment and tell my fire story, if you guys don't mind. Okay.
Sure.
And again, this really touches me. And again, this has been going on in the state for a very long time. And I want to remind everybody that Gavin was elected on the theoretical promise of shoring back up the Department of Emergency Services, which under Jerry Brown had deteriorated down to virtually a skeleton of itself. And remember, when we talk about things like COVID, again, I've said this a million times on the show, well, maybe not a million, but at least 3 times, that California is the most natural area to have some kind of disaster as rated by the government, period, end of sentence. It's going to be a fire, an earthquake, COVID. And if we can't handle the slow tick up of COVID, we're certainly not prepared for disasters. Now, I want to describe to you, for those of you out there, when you hear these again and see these on TV, and we talk about these backroom dealings, and we talk about the French Laundry, I want to make this or a fire part of your common unit experience, because I've been through one and lost my home in one. Understand what this is like. Everybody out there, in 2007, there were 3 major fires in San Diego, and they were started, culpability admitted, but not liable in court, by Sempra, known as San Diego Gas and Electric. They were started because the big, I think they're called aliens or whatever, those big cones you see, they tap against each other. Understand, these things are charged with huge megawatts of electricity. And by the way, in 2007, Sempra, or San Diego Gas and Electric, knew very well these presented a fire danger, just like PG&E and just like Southern California Edison did. But they gambled on the profitability fact that the damage caused by the fires would be paid off by their insurance and less of an investment than fixing the infrastructure. This has been admitted many times in court. But let's put ourselves in the middle of the experience. What happens is you see, we had a house that was on 2.5 acres with a large open hills beside us, and you could see the wall of flames coming down the hill. Now, for everybody out there, please heed my words. Everybody like Robin or Susan, if you've been evacuated, you really don't think it's your house that's going to burn. And neither did we when we left, even though we could see a wall of flame that was told, like, again, it's 20 minutes away from us, but you could see the flames burning. Understand how hot these fires get. And for everybody out there, understand that, again, the power company officials, and again, not the lineman, not the everyday person, collaborate with state government to make sure that they're not, that they don't have to bury their power lines. These are monopolies, and they didn't bury their power lines. And what we had happen was this. Our family home, which was quite large and stood about 40 feet high, got consumed by an 80-foot wall of flame, where it got so hot, and not only it literally hit what's called the flash point of concrete. Understand that when you look at these homes and come back to them, the house is literally vaporized. Flash point means that concrete literally vaporized. The foundation of our house vaporized. Now, Robin and I talked about this before the show. Also understand, when you talk about environmental concerns, it's not just the smoke which goes into the air, but I nicknamed our burn site the crash site, if you will. That was good for the kids at the time. The trauma to my kids was pretty intense. They were in their early teens at the time, only house they ever knew. But the trauma to the ground, or what happens with this flash point when a house burns, it literally vaporizes the chemicals, not just the refrigerators, everything that the home is made of, built for different times, different codes, the septic tank that we run, your sewer system, and it seeps it into the ground. And the chemicals which go up in the air that you're probably breathing today, these winds from these fires have gone all the way as far as Europe, contain toxic things that will catch up to you down the road, probably almost as bad as when a nuclear power plant has a meltdown. You just don't see it over a period of time. Understand that the flames in these fires can reach over 2,500 degrees. They literally vaporize your home, release chemicals into the soil, and many of these are preventable. And we know some of the ones that maybe are not preventable, that are started by lightning, and the clearing one's been beaten to a pulp. But what we're trying to dwell on tonight is the fact that the utility companies are accountable to the state of California and accountable to the people. And Gavin Newsom not only has not done anything since he's been in office, he's used undue influence to keep the people who had their houses burned in the last fire from receiving due compensation. And in fact, he tied their compensation to PG&E stock after they declared bankruptcy. You really think this governor is for the people of California? Let me tell you something. There aren't many people out there in the 20 seconds I have left before the break who've been through a fire and lost a home. I'm one of them. And God bless it. And let me tell you something, Gavin, you should quit today for what you've done. Get ready. Here I come. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry. KABC. Recall Gavin2020.com. Listen to me everywhere. Everybody everywhere, listen to these next segments and what we have to say.
And we're not like other creatures. Rules do not apply to us. We are the leaders. Borders can't be trusted to be indoor eaters. They are more contagious after all. They're mouth breathers.
Mouth breathers. Hey, Mike, you ever decide to run for office?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Wait, you're asking if Mike is running, considering? No, I have no idea what Mike's
Yeah, Mike, have you ever considered running for office?
well, he can't hear us right now, so
Why?
because when he's at the station, he's on permanent mute.
Oh,
It's a bit much to do everything that he's doing in the station as well as do the Zoom during the commercial breaks. I totally understand. Taking the little breaks that he's taking, definitely a nice thing. But I mean, just imagine if you get a knock on the door telling you need to leave home now with just the clothes on your back, and everything is gone, diminished. Photos, computers, every little bit and piece that you own is gone.
That's what I worry about the most. My photos, I'll grab my dogs and my computer, make sure I'm wearing my wedding ring.
Yeah, even the little hard drives that's on in your computers, that's gone. I mean, if it can evaporate concrete.
Oh no, I'll take my laptop with me. That'll be the first thing. If I know a fire, like when we had that one right up on Wildwood, I was freaked out. But see, the good thing is I'm married to a former fire captain. He's
Nice.
calm, and he knows if it's getting close. He knows all about containment. He knows the fire talk, fire walk.
Yeah.
So that helps, but it didn't help when he was working and he was out on strike teams,
Right.
different counties.
Yeah. He's nowhere nearby to help out at home. I totally understand that.
Right.
And talk about the environmental impact. We're smoggy all the way down here, and I'm at an interesting crossroads point. I'm near Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, Santa Clara County, Merced County, and San Benito County. I'm right in the middle of all those counties.
Come up
And,
here and smell
we're-
smoke.
Oh, you can probably taste it. It's getting close to the point of tasting it down here.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, the air channel's down this direction. And so it's overcast, smoggy. And even last year, oh my gosh, the skies were this golden color.
The sad thing is that a lot of these fires are preventable.
Yes.
One, if PG&E and Newsom weren't in bed. Two,
Yeah.
why is he shouldn't have released prisoners early, and he shouldn't be closing down camps.
Correct.
Those guys were valuable.
And he shouldn't be lying about the numbers that were
Right.
that he reported.
isn't almost anything out of his mouth a lie? He thinks he's done so great for our state. Show me one. What has he done that is so great for our state?
Yeah, if anybody out there can hear, call in. Let us know what he's done great for this state.
What has he done? I want to hear. I'd love to hear.
1-800-222-5222. Call in. Let us know.
Yeah.
So once again, that's 1-800-222-5222.
And help us stay on the air for our French laundries. Running the French Laundry by donating to recallgavin2020.com.
All right, we're turning it down here so the kitchen can be turned back up.
On the menu tonight, A Better California with Executive Chef Orrin Heatley and Maitre d' Mike Netter.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Friday Nights at the French Laundry in our final 30 minutes here. You know, it's interesting because we're out there, our fearless leader, well, he's not fearless, but he is our leader, love you, Orrin, put out an email today. And if you're not on an email list, you really need to get on it. I've got a lot of people who are calling us saying, hey, I haven't got your emails. Go to Recall Gavin 2020 and put it out there. Look, if we can raise another $150,000, we can probably run a few TV ads. Now, a lot of these numbers sound really kind of big when we say the money we need to raise. We know how much Gavin's raised. But I want to kind of put some things in perspective with the theme of our show. Robin, you kind of keep the books for us. And as you know, we in the Recall, and so many of us are blessed because we all hate Gavin that much, actually. It's amazing we work for free. But I'd like you, Robin, as our financial person, do you have a calculator handy?
I wish I did. My batteries are dead, but what do you need? See if I
want
can do
to
it on
take
Excel.
$400,000 and divide it by 31.5.
100,000?
No, $400,000 and divide it by
400 or 100?
400 grand. $400,000, way more than we're even asking for TV ads. And I want you to divide that by 31.5.
That
112,698.
Okay. Now, you guys are probably wondering why I wanted you to do that, right?
Right.
All right, let me explain why. When Gavin was out at the French Laundry, and by the way, we should thank Gavin for inspiring the title to our show, but let's put that down. Eating a $350 dinner with his buddy Jason Kenney, who is also not only a consultant to Gavin, or a lobbyist as we like to call him. Jason Kenney, through a company called Axiom Advisors, also advised PG&E about their bankruptcy, and they've all known each other for 20 years. Now, Axiom Advisors, this is from the article, Firepower Money. Axiom Advisors said it met periodically with the governor's office and had a $400,000 fee they charged for performing 31 and a half hours of billable work. Kenney was listed as performing 31.5 hours of billable work and got $400,000 for it. Now, exactly what did that come to per hour?
$12,698. Seriously?
I'm in the wrong business.
Apparently. Now, I want to go on record right now and saying, PG&E, if you just called me, I would have billed you only half that. That would have been some cost savings right there for you. And I think I could have given you some pretty good advice, like stay away from Gavin. He's bad. But they probably wouldn't have paid me that kind of money. Yes, you're hearing correctly. They got paid in full plus interest because the plan delivered for his clients. Understand that Newsom inserted himself as the broker. Yes, the governor of California inserted himself as the broker for PG&E's plan to exit bankruptcy. This is a matter of public record. Gee, Gavin, why don't you answer some questions on that interview? Well, you probably sweat too much, have to go change clothing partway through the interview. But understand that he inserted himself as a broker because his best buddy, who he was at the French Laundry with, paying $350 a plate. I guess, Robin, you can kind of, Susan, you can kind of afford that if you're making $12,500 an hour, right?
Right.
It's about 5 minutes of work. Okay, this show's over. I got to go get a real job. Jeez. Anyway, understand what this meant. Now, the town of Paradise. Susan, how far do you live from Paradise?
An hour and a half away. Robin's very close.
No, I was going to Robin next.
Okay.
So an hour and a half isn't that far. That's from my old home in San Diego to about where I live now. Again, it seems things are far away because they're not happening to us. Robin, how close do you live to Paradise?
20 minutes.
Okay. The town of Paradise, okay? I don't even know a polite way to say this. This may be the last thing I say in here. Got screwed, all right? The payments that they were offered, because PG&E was found criminally culpable. Now, can I take a second and explain what I mean by that?
Sure.
All right. So you just heard.
Just a second.
Good luck with that. You just heard that Southern California Edison wasn't found criminally culpable for the fire about a year and a half ago that killed 3 people. They'll still be found civilly culpable. Big difference. Criminally culpable that PG&E was found in these fires means, we know about it. We just didn't care. And we weren't worried because we had backing from the governor of California. So the company that was found criminally culpable had a judge, had a governor, which brokered the settlement, and PG&E, declared bankruptcy, causing their stock to go down. And the people of Paradise, 20 minutes from your home, Robin, an hour and a half from where you live, and really not that far from I live, about 4 hours, they were awarded their compensation over a number of years. Are you ready for this? In PG&E stock.
Right. That's worth nothing anymore to speak of.
You're kidding. I thought they were supposed to get several $1 million each.
Well, of course they were, but it was kind of like, hey, here's some new kind of Bitcoin, and we'll see what it's worth. And the judge, picked by Gavin Newsom, had the audacity to tell them, you know, you're kind of invested with PG&E because, you know, you're invested in their future. So you really should take this settlement because your settlement is coming in stock. That's kind of like saying somebody shot a relative of yours, but you really should look out for the murderer. I mean, I
have stock in PG&E for many, many years, and it's never been worth a damn.
It's even worth less now.
Right.
I think yesterday it was down to $8 a share.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that have received 3 different checks. I don't know how they're determining how they pay these people that have lost so much. The gal I talked with last week has yet to receive a claim, but she knows people or any payment toward her loss. But yet there are some people that have received up to 3 payments. And what she is learning is they're just dragging this out because some of the little grunt lawyers are still getting paid $1,500 an hour. So why should they hurry to settle these claims?
Well, I was just going to bring that up, and I want to find the right names of the law firm here, but let me just say this. Gavin Newsom continuously goes to 2 outside law firms. Look them up. Look up the Cal Matters articles on it. Look up NPR, Cap Radio, Scott Rod's articles on it. He continuously, every time something comes up, and in fact, in the lawsuits the action we took where Gavin sued himself for the D, he's using outside attorneys. Now, just to understand, Gavin Newsom still, until September 14th, Robin and Susan, is the governor of California. You understand that, right?
We do.
And you understand that even with his own handpicked attorney general, he's got at least around 1,000 attorneys that work for the state that kind of work as part of the overhead. You guys get that, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yet, oddly enough, he continuously goes to outside counsel And
Why?
Well, that's a really good question, Susan. Gavin, if you're out there tonight, call 1-800-222-5222 and tell us why you use outside counsel, because that's a question we have. I can tell you one reason he does it is because these two firms that negotiated the PG&E settlements received from the state of California $3 million and $5 million for their fine work in screwing over the people of paradise. Isn't life grand? So to your point, who gives a damn about the citizens? It's the rich elitists supporting Gavin in the drive to keep him in office because it's about corruption. We're going to roll in 1 minute to break. Everybody out there, we've got one segment left, and we've got a lot to say. But if you want to try to get...
If I can add something really fast. Newsom's team is trying to convince people that this is a Republican power grab. We know that, but many of them don't know that. This was CPC's latest email. So we're going to launch a social media and radio advertising campaign to refute these lies and share the truth as to why people need to vote yes to this recall. And this advertising campaign is going to cost about $150,000. If you have it, if you can donate it, that would be awesome. RecallGavin2020.com.
Beautifully said, Susan. We're going to go into that in our final segment here. For everybody out there right now, stay tuned for our final segment. But right now, please turn your volume down just a bit. Hide the children, put the pets under the bed, because I'm ready to go. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC, Recall, Gavin2020.com. We are the voice of the people. Stand up, California. Take back your damn state. Vote yes.
Any violation might kill a grandma. Why you do what you want, even pardon in-laws. Mr. Mayor, how would you prefer your foie gras? Donate it.
Lost my phone.
Oops.
Traffic right now in South Pasadena. Accident 110 freeway southbound before York Boulevard.
You really should consider running for office, Mike.
Well, Mike can't hear you right now. He's just giving us thumbs up. He's like, yeah, no. Bad timing for that question.
I'll chat him.
He won't be able to see until,
He can't see the chats either.
Unless he's paying attention, which he's not, if you're looking at the camera. But that's okay. So folks that are listening out there, this isn't all volunteer effort. The California Patriot Coalition only has one paid employee for Recall Gavin 2020. Everything else is going toward the recall efforts. So if you can donate today, we can just keep this movement going and make sure we get Gavin gone, as they say in Sacramento. Love being in that chat group. Wonderful group of people there. And let's see here. Robin, are you back? Yes, we have you, Robin. Nice. But we can't hear you. I don't know why. You're not on mute. I don't know.
She's got her computer system sound off. Take your...
So for those that can read lips, for some reason, we're not able to hear Robin, so we're having technical difficulties on her end.
Turn your computer volume up.
No, but we're not able to hear her, and we should be able to hear her. She's not on mute, so I'm not understanding what's going on.
Computer is on mute, Tim.
Hers is not. Don't worry about my computer. It's her computer.
Her computer is not on mute.
Correct.
That doesn't make sense.
That's what I'm saying. So folks, we're just having minor technical difficulties, so we're unable to hear Robin currently. But we could read it on the screen if Robin's willing to type it. Okay, so she's not. Okay, that's okay.
That one, I'm good at reading lips.
And now she's over accentuating, which makes it hard to read.
You know, this recall team over the last year and a half has become like a family.
Yes. I've met a lot of really good good-hearted people with the recall team here. And I'm glad I was able to join in. I'm glad I took an 11-mile wheelchair ride, so Lauren was able to get out there.
Wheelchair warrior.
All right, and we're back on the radio show.
French Laundry with head chef Owen Heatley and maitre d' Mike Netter.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our virtual restaurant of politics. All about the main entree, the recall of Gavin Newsom. Look, we have listeners tuning in all the time. If you're just tuning in now, we're talking about fires in this final segment, as we've been talking about all show. You know, it's interesting. Environmentalists talk about protecting wildlife, etc. There's rabbits, squirrels, deer, all kinds of animals that run and get killed by these. There are Homo sapiens like us that simply are polluted by the smoke. There's lives which are lost. Yet the governor of California is out campaigning now because he cares more about his office than the people of California. He keeps talking about how much he cares about this damn state, and if it wasn't for this damn recall. Well, let me ask you, Gavin, really? Have you made really? Thanks for going and making an appearance, picking at some trash like he talked about. But have you been out? I mean, I found that really funny. You made a big deal. I was actually out there picking up trash, whether you like it or not. I picked up 7 things. It's like, great, Gavin. But where are these politicians on the front lines? When my house burned in 2007, and you could see wildlife literally running, it was horrible to see. But, you know, where's the state government and all this meeting the people and doing something for the people after it happens? And where's the state government doing something before it happens?
Go ahead. Well, do you remember, Mike? I grew up north in the mountains, and I can remember as a kid asking my parents, why is there a ski slope there? And I don't know, I would think there are many other people, I'm dating myself, but back in the day, there used to be bulldozers that would go up into the mountains and grade out large fire breaks. And long ago, I remember when all of this came about, saving the spotted owl, saving the tree frog, people hanging hammocks in trees because it was environmentally damaging to cut down the trees in the forest. All those things now have led to not only the devastation of forests, homes, lives, businesses, livestock, and animals, but those spotted owls didn't make it, and neither did the tree frogs. And instead, what's left now, like you said earlier, is contaminated ground and water. A year after the Camp Fire, the water in Paradise was still contaminated. And 3 years later, there are sections of Paradise where the water is still not drinkable, not suitable for brushing your teeth, making your ice cubes, cooking, drinking, because it contains benzene, which is a cancer-causing chemical that has seeped down into the ground. So, you know, all this talk about caring about the people when preventative measures could have avoided all this. And those people still get water bills every month, even though they can't use the water. You know, where's Gavin in helping people like that versus people that are coming in here illegally that we're paying everything for? We have citizens that are suffering because of these devastating wildfires, but there sure is not money allocated to their needs left from, you know, the devastating fires. So it's such a domino effect. It's really sad.
Well, it's a good point, Susan. I'm going to roll you for the final thing here before I get to my final rant here, which might be exceptionally long tonight. But, you know, Sue, here's really the point. I want to, you said some very valuable things there. The reality is it's kind of not working for anybody. It's not working for the rabbits, the squirrels, the deer, the cattle. It's not even working right now for the environmentalists, quite honestly, who are ticked to Gavin. Gavin has accelerated the cycle of everything horribly. The Sierra Club's mad at him. I can't. It's hard for me to think of anybody that isn't mad at Gavin, quite honestly.
Right.
But I think the real important takeaway from what you said is this: is a long time ago, I was young once. And when I was young, we respected our environment, and we don't need necessarily a lot of laws to tell us that we don't need to ruin our environment. But what we've done is broke the natural cycle of things. And I think what's happening is by accelerating the breaking of the natural cycle of things, we've accelerated the cycle. More fires will lead to more global warming, etc. But before I go on my final rant here, Susan, give us your thoughts on Gavin's corruption related to PG&E and kind of what we've been harping on a little bit tonight.
PG&E didn't make a move until they had the go-ahead from Newsom, and it's a shame. Newsom was putting PG&E under fire and claiming all these bad things about him, yet he was taking donations from PG&E, and they couldn't do anything until he gave the go-ahead. Yeah, all he thought about were his contributions, not the state of California, not the people, not the animals, our homes, our livelihoods, nothing. He is the most corrupt governor I've seen. And like I said earlier, he's got a lot of blood on his hands. And it's sad. This man has to go. I see no reason why he should not be recalled. And like you said earlier, he should be accountable for the blood on his hands. He needs to be indicted.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a possibility after he's released?
I think more and more, if we get an attorney general with any guts that isn't a handpicked hack, basically, right, I think we can. Before we roll the end of our show, Robin and Susan, thank you so much tonight for coming and helping us cook up a good show. Robin, thank you so much for bringing an excellent guest. And I want you to really, everybody, in our final few minutes here, get your arms around what's heard tonight. Again, look it up, Fire, Power, Money. Get your arms around the governor that we have. Don't listen to the whining about politics. Here's the reality, everybody, okay? 2019, Gavin lied about the acres that were cleared. He exaggerated by 686%. Get your arms around that, the acres that were cleared. And we really don't know how clearing that acreage could have prevented and saved somebody's life. Gavin, maybe you should be held criminally accountable.
Yeah.
Continually going on, Gavin Newsom, how dare you? How dare you even give the appearance of the largest donor throughout your career, collaborating, exercising undue influence? See Como in New York this week and really read some of the stories to come out. To your point, Susan, after he's been out of office, about he's exerted pressure. And maybe, just maybe, or maybe not, the California politics are learning way too many lessons from New York corruption, because there is corruption in California politics. But let me tell you something, Gavin Newsom. And let me tell you something, Pelosi, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. This is about the people of our damn state. And Gavin, I can't tell you of all the things I'm disappointed in you, and the list is way too long to even uncover in 2 hours, how damn disappointed I am that you would meet with the President of the United States and come back with simply the fact that he was going to defend you in the recall. Really? How about doing something why fires are actually raging in California? You have the guts to come back with that kind of message. You don't have the guts to even comment on this article. You don't even have the guts to comment on the money that you paid to big law firms. Let me tell you something why we're here asking for even $150,000 in that email that Orrin put out today. Because Gee, isn't it funny that the rich elitists contribute to Gavin? No, it's not. Because the rich elitists need Gavin Newsom in office. They need Gavin Newsom in office to continue this path of corruption, which is not helping the average person in California. Gavin, I don't want to ever see you at the French Laundry Grand, but frankly, worse, more than that, I don't want to see you in our capital. PG&E, I don't want to see you associating with Gavin Newsom. California, you have a chance out here. You have a chance starting before September 14th to take your state back. And the rich people, the elitists, are going to try to keep you from taking that chance. Everybody out there, it's time. Recall Gavin, recallgavin2020.com. Friday nights at the French Laundry. Next week, we have Reagan on. It's going to be an exciting show. Get out there, spread the word, vote yes, take back your damn state, and keep the corruption out of it.
This show is sponsored by the official Recall Committee California Patriot Coalition. Recall Governor Newsom 2020, number 1424018. Committee major funding from others include Rescue California, Recall Gavin Newsom, Proud 39 LLC, BGB Ranch.
All right. So this is the a couple of minutes after.
Okay, we're off the air.
But we're still live on Facebook.
Good
I know
job, Mike, Susan.
Thank you guys for a great show.
Yes, a wonderful show, guys. Any last words, Robin?
9 o'clock. I'm Sharon Reardon, and here's
I don't know how many people stay on, but you know what? If you're ever the possibility of a fire, and it can be any reason, but a good friend of mine showed me what she did. Take a binder, put your passport in there, your insurance policies, your car pink slips, your family documents like death certificates, an extra checkbook, your bank account statements, your last investment statement. It's just nice to be able to grab one binder and know you have your most valuable documents.
A quick
Just an
grab and go.
idea.
Let me add something to that because that's the common thing. The most valuable thing we got out of our fire, with all due deference, you can recover documents today. The biggest thing my ex and my daughter put together, they grabbed albums of pictures that weren't replaceable. And I really want to say that, you know, there's a whole thing I could do, probably a whole seminar on fires and how to protect your valuable papers. But here's the reality. Most people don't go through losing a house, but I will tell you this. When you do, most stuff is replaceable. There were lives lost in the fire that I was in. There were lives lost in the fire that we're talking about. And the real disgusting part about what Gavin is doing, perpetuating that, is the criminal liability part. He's associating with a felon, basically, which again isn't the lineman, but it's the executives in this company. The executives in our fire had great knowledge they were putting the public at risk. That was proven in court.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You can replace family photos. You can have family memories as long as the family's still around you.
All right. We only have just another moment or two, Mike. Sorry.
I'm done. You know, I normally don't go on after these. All right. God bless you and good night.
Susan, any last words? When you're off of mute?
She's muted.
I know.
Okay, I'm out.
I wanted
Mike.
everyone to not listen to the polls. Do your own research for the next candidate for governor.
Yes.
I mean, the polls that are being pushed around are from Facebook only, and not everyone is on Facebook. That's it.
Good
All
night.
right.
Night,
right.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ladies
Tim.
and gentlemen. Tune in on Wednesday for our Recall Gavin 2020 town hall meeting. And we'll see you next week on Friday night at the French Laundry. Have a good night, all.
Good night.
Thanks, Tim. Good night. Night, Susan.
Night, Robin.